Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. Sponsored by Harmony Academy from National University. On this episode, Tom and Josh talk with Daryl Williams Jr., an award-winning educator, author, and educational speaker who gives some concrete tips about how we can stay amazing and inspire each other.
Daryl, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Absolutely.
Before we get going, can you give us a little rundown on who you are and what your role in education is? A little elevator pitch, if you will.
Little elevator pitch. Here we go. I am Daryl Williams Jr., former terrible teacher turned two-time teacher of the year. I am currently a school administrator at Charlotte Country Day private school. But what I'm most proud of is being a leader of the Impact community, which is a community of new teachers where we really help teachers become the teachers that they've always dreamt of being and make the impact that they've always wanted to make.
You've done a lot, Daryl. You're a former terrible teacher, but you also write books. You go around the country. You speak about teaching and education. Like, you're super passionate about it. I have your book right here, and I read it. Absolutely incredible. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us a little bit about how it got started, like what your thoughts were with it, the title. You share some great stories in here, so let us have it all.
Yeah. Well, first of all, shout out to you, Tom, for reading it. A lot of people just pick it up because they like the color, and they're like, wow, this will look nice on my bookshelf.
It does look good on the bookshelf after I read it, though.
That's awesome, man. So the fact that you read it is kudos to you, but it's my story, from being a terrible teacher. I always kind of jokingly say I'm a former terrible teacher turned two-time teacher of the year, but it's not a joke. And I was really struggling a lot when I really first started in education. We can get into a minute even why I got into education in the first place, but I was struggling so much and I just kind of needed guidance, needed support, and I didn't have it. Long story short, I just always say that this is the book that I needed when I was struggling the most. So when I was a struggling teacher, looking for answers, like wanting to be the best that I could be, wanting to make an impact on students, just got out of college, thousands of dollars in debt, but now I don't know what I'm doing, and now even questioning if education should be for me. What are the words that I needed to hear? So in the book, it'll take you through the thought process that I was going through, and then into what I call the 4 IDs that allowed me to transition, which first I had to identify my dream. Why am I even doing this? What am I doing here? Then I had to illuminate my differences to make the impact that only I could, leverage my uniqueness to make the impact only I could. Ignore my doubters, so to fortify my mindset, to know that I'm strong enough to make a difference, and improve my data so that I can deliver on the promise that I made to students. So we caught the 4 I's and D's in there. But what I was saying was I had to find my teacher identity or find my teacher ID in order to make the impact that I was called to make. And that's what I did. And it's all in the book.
When Tom and I go and we speak, we're really big on sharing our story. And part of that for me is when I first started, I had that same get-go that you did, where I didn't feel like I was inept to have this classroom to myself, but if I asked for help, I felt like I was going to be this failure.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to turn what I wanted to be into who I needed to be for my kids. Was there anybody that you leaned on during those times to help you, or was it all internal reflection?
No. I wish it was all internal reflection. I definitely have people to lean on. But Tom, did you have a similar start to your career? Just curious.
Yeah, I think that's something that's similar across the board. Like, you go into it, and for some reason, maybe it was just me too, but I thought I was doing the right things. I thought I knew the answers. I thought, I could do it in my silo, and that's not the case. To be really successful, to be a great teacher, you have to lean on other people. You have to let them in. You have to find your partners, find your people.
Got you. I was just curious because I see that Josh had a similar start to me. You did. So we're at batting 100% right now. We're batting 1,000. And I just don't know. I think a lot of people feel alone in their struggle. Like, I am the only one struggling, because I know I definitely did. But as you can see, it's a real common story for teachers to struggle kind of right out of the gates and eventually get their footing and get it together. But I think as new teachers, they just think I'm the only one that's struggling like this, and there's nobody else there to support me. And I definitely felt that way, which is why I laughed. So I did not have the answers internally. What I learned was one of the things I had to do was surround myself with supportive people and surround myself with people that are like-minded. And I've kind of looked at what I needed and synthesized it into something that I teach now. And I'll put it like this. In order to be supported, we've got to be surrounded. And when I say surrounded, that means that you're covered not just by one or two people, but if there was a police chase and it was like, come out with your hands up, we've got you surrounded. That means that there's people on either side of you, like all around. There's nowhere to go, there's nowhere out, all around you. And so in order to be surrounded as an educator on your journey, you need people ahead of you, people beside you, and people behind you. When I say ahead of you, that means people who are your guides, who have been where you are and are where you eventually want to be. So people that you can look up to on your journey. And I definitely had that in my administrator and my mom, who's an amazing teacher, who was kind of my ahead of me and guiding me through that. Then you need to have people beside you, like your right-hand man, your right-hand people. Those are peers, people that are going through it with you. If I could be honest, whether it's covert or overt, right? Because Josh, you were one of my peers, like when I first started speaking and getting into producing content and things like that, and I got on TikTok and I saw that there's this teacher with like 1 million followers. I was like, oh, he's sharing information that is helpful to others. That would be so cool if I could do something like that too, right? But just like feeding off of peers, I know that you're teaching in the day and now you're thinking like, what content can I produce? How can this be helpful for somebody else? Like you know what I'm saying? It's like you're recording podcasts at night after you put your kids to bed, like people who are going through the same type of struggles, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. So people
100%.
beside you. Exactly. And then the last two real quick, beside on the other side, your left hand, your blind side, those are the people that are looking out for you, making sure that you are, you're taking care of yourself, making sure you're taking your mental health days and things like that.
I love what you said about just surrounding yourself with people. And it's not just somebody pulling you ahead. It's not just somebody like pushing you. It's surrounding yourself. So another thing that I really loved in your book is like you are responsible, right? Like you are responsible for you finding these people and making the connections. And one thing that you talk about is positive affirmations. And so, man, I was watching Receivers on Netflix, and
Okay, cool.
old George Kittle from the Founders is big into affirmations too. Every game he's out there telling himself what a great player he is, how he's feeling. Tell us a little bit about affirmations and how they apply to educators and classrooms.
Before you can do the thing, you have to believe that you can. That's for teachers, that's for students, that's for everybody. Your brain has to first believe that you're capable of doing the thing before you actually do it, right? And what an affirmation does, or a positive self-affirmation, what it does is reinforce the idea in your mind that you are capable, right? That it is possible. And I always like to say that if something is possible, you are capable to make it happen. I always think about the time that I learned another language, where when I was in Argentina, I had a minor in Spanish when I was in college, and I went away to Argentina for a couple of months. And I was pretty good in Spanish when I was in college and high school. I was pretty good. But once I landed in Argentina, I felt like I knew nothing. I felt completely like this. It felt like a different language, which it was, but I was like, this is not what I saw in the textbooks. But after a couple of weeks, everybody speaking to me in Spanish, all the street signs are in Spanish, all the TV shows and the movies and the music is in Spanish, the radios, everything that was happening, church was in Spanish, like everything was in Spanish. And after a couple of weeks, my mind began to be transformed because I was completely engulfed in this new language. And that's the same thing that happens when we speak positive affirmations. Because we are exposed to so much negativity, or I can't, or self-doubt, imposter syndrome, things like that, we have to reshape the language and the thoughts in our mind, surround ourselves with positive thoughts and immerse ourselves in positive thoughts in order to now believe, okay, I can actually do this thing.
100%. And I think back on where I was, even to where I am now, that self-doubt can be really hard to overcome. With everything that's going on in education, the pressure that's put on administrators or teachers with test scores and whatnot, it can be really hard to not fall into those self-doubt holes and get into some pretty dark spots. I know for Tom and I, back when COVID happened during 2020, that's when we came up with our podcast, because at least in my world, I was losing inspiration to be a teacher. Like, if that's what teaching was going to be, I didn't want to be part of it, because you were missing out on those real connections with kids. So yeah, just remembering to have those positive talks to yourself.
Yeah.
Daryl, I'm curious what did get you in education, because you talked about former terrible teacher, 2-time teacher of the year. What got you into the classroom in the first place?
It is the story that's probably the opposite of a lot of people. A lot of people, they ask, a lot of teachers, we ask at the beginning of the year or career, what's your why? Why'd you get into education? And a lot of people can name a teacher. When I was in third grade, Miss Schilling just, put me on the right track, right? Like, you can call out a specific teacher. And And I always say that I just never had that. And I was the kid that was perfectly average in everything. Like literally in everything, I was just average. Even when it came to sports, I would say I played basketball. I wasn't the sixth man of the year. I was just the fifth person because I had four friends. So it'd always just be like, you're you're playing too, right? Right. I'm not scoring the most or whatever. Always. I've just always been average. So my grades were pretty good. My behavior was fine. They never had to call home. But I just always felt like I was lost, like not friends. I mean, I had people I would speak to, but nobody that had like really deep relationships.
Yeah.
And so while I was going to school every single day, I just would always, people would ask, how are things going? Like when I got home, parents asked me, how was school? And I would always say, good, fine. But in actuality, I was like, I want more friends. I want people to check on me. I want teachers, like I just wanted something. So I would say that I became the teacher that I always needed and never had. Right. Because I feel like there should have been somebody. I can't remember any of my teachers' names, like from K-12. There should have been somebody that reached out and latched on. And I said, we're in school so much that I don't want anybody to have the experience that I had. I want everybody to know that there's somebody in the building that loves for you, cares for you, supports you. And I want them to think that that person is me. Right. I think Tinker Rosaria said that everybody should have that one person that they can tell the truth to when asked, how are you?
Yeah.
And I just didn't have that person. So I just wanted to be that person for students. And I said, I'll go be a teacher.
Well, we need that. Teachers need to find those connections with students, and students have to feel valued and welcomed and seen. And you and I are both part of this amazing, amazing community. Josh is on it too. The Harmony Academy Educators Advisory Group. And one thing that they really is the connection between teachers and students with each other. What do you see as not just benefits like for students and teachers, but like for the school community? If you have teachers that are looking out for those connections for students, you know what I mean?
Yeah, teachers connecting with students, connecting with each other, because it's connections that are going to continue to drive us and to grow us as individuals. So many students are looking just for that genuine relationship, that genuine connection. I always like to say that who you were made to be is exactly who somebody else needs to see. And one of the things that I used to struggle with so much was hiding my individuality, hiding my uniqueness, looking at other teachers in the building and what they're doing in order to be successful, and thinking that I had to do that same exact thing, following other teachers on social media, Instagram, TikTok, things, and saying, oh, this is what's working in their classroom. Let me do that same exact thing. But not realizing that the person that I was made to be is exactly who some student in my class is wanting to connect with. Right? They want to connect with our love of the Chiefs. Right? I don't love the Chiefs, but I see your hat and I'm like, talk about that. Right? I'm an Eagles fan, so I can't like you, but but they want to connect, right? And they want to see what it is that sets you apart and that allows them to connect. But I think it's really cool because we want to highlight both our similarities and differences. Similarities are the things like it's favorite teams, think interests and things like that. But it's our differences that really allow us to make an impact, because similarities can't help us to make a difference. That sentence doesn't even make sense. Similarities can allow us to make a difference. Similarities allow us to connect, but differences allow us to impact. The things that make us different, the thing that makes us unique, the way that you teach, the way that your style, the way that you approach the relationships, the way that you build, the things that make you different are the things that are going to allow you to make a difference in the world.
Now I'm thinking back to your former terrible teacher comment, and I'm thinking, I just don't believe it anymore, because you went in for the perfect reason, right? What we want everybody to go into teaching for, and that's to love kids, to be there for kids and support them. And I think, I'm not an administrator, but I think like the curriculum stuff can get pushed to the side every once in a while if we realize that we're really here for the kids, to love the kids and be there with them. So I no longer believe the terrible teacher comment.
Because that was the reason why I got into education, and that immediately went out the window on August 6th, 2014. And I'll never forget that day. August 5th was the very first day I ever taught my own classroom, 7th grade math. Awesome. I walked in on that day. They were wonderful angels on the first day of school. August 6th, they were completely different. They were
Yeah.
not the same students. And that is when everything went out the window. I came in with that vision. I came in with that dream. I came in with that excitement. And that's what I talk about in the book too. I came in with all this anxiety, and then I got punched in the face by seventh graders where they're like, we're not doing any of that. Right? We don't care. So to your point, although I had that dream and that vision and that goal, or that why, I quit 6 weeks into my first year teaching. I quit. Now I didn't stop collecting my check, and I kept showing up in the building, but I literally quit. Like, I said to the students, I can't take this anymore. You're not learning. It's not me, it's you. And then I said things like, the teacher that I did not want to be. Remember, I said I wanted to be the teacher that I always needed and never had. I became the exact teacher that I did not want to be. Where I said things to students like, and you've heard them before, I said things to students like, I know seventh grade math already. Right? It doesn't matter to me if you get it. My job is to teach. You're messing up your future, your career. This is on you, right? And then I said, if you want to learn, scoot your chair up to the front. If you don't want to learn, you can go sit in the back. And there were like 4 kids that scooted their chair up to the front, like 32 kids that were in the back playing on their phones, right? I was like, that's on you. This is your decision. That happened 6 weeks into my first year. So that's why I told you that by the end of the year, the principal was like, please don't come back.
I always think it's crazy too with teaching that you really only get that semester of student teaching to experience what it's like in the classroom, and you've always got somebody there with you, and then you're thrown in to this jungle almost type of thing where, like, you can read all the classroom management books or do all of these things, but it takes real practice to get good.
100%. And I spent my semester that I was supposed to be student teaching in Argentina.
Daryl, if there was one thing, because new teachers need all the support and the love and the help and whatever we can give them. I've been in the business 20 years. Josh has been in it a while. You've been in it a little while. What can we do for the new teachers as veterans, so they don't become jaded, so they don't, go to kids and say, well, I don't care if you learn. My job is to teach. Your job is to learn. That's, the linear process. It isn't linear anymore. So how can we support these teachers?
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you asked that question. And the answer is not as simple as you think, because it's putting the onus back on the teacher. But I think what we first have to do is admit that whoever the we is, the administrator in that building, that you don't have all the answers. I think that's the first place we have to start. One, as an administrator, you don't have all the answers. And two, you can't be everybody's support. Remember earlier, I talked about being surrounded. So one thing that we do that is okay is we'll set up new teachers with like a mentor teacher or something of that nature. That's a good first step, but most people stop right there. And that's not fully sufficient. What would be better is actually embedded inside of a formula that I teach called the 3D effective teacher success formula. We have 3Ds where with teachers can really master this. That's what all highly effective teachers have been able to master over the years. So one, you want to know the 3Ds?
I'm dying to know. Yeah.
The 3Ds. The first one is to develop your own transformation plan. As a teacher, you can't sit back and wait for the school to assign you to the correct PD, to send you to the right conference to help you with the correct. You have to develop your own transformation plan by self-assessing what are the needs that you have, and then going out to figure out how to build those skills. Right? I always say that where you are, there's a gap between where you are and where you want to be as an educator. You can see where you are, you have a vision of where you want to be, and there's a gap. Well, you can bridge that gap, but the way that you construct that bridge is by acquiring more skills. So we can acquire skills based off of deciding what is it that I need. So first, develop your own transformation plan. Don't wait for anybody else to come save you. Figure out what are the skills you need. Second is to decide on your system of support, which is what I was saying. It may not be just the administrator, right? It may not be your grade level lead. Who are the people you can use to surround you? It may not be just your mentor teacher. That's a good start. But what's the community that you can get in, right? A community Facebook group, a social media group, a Harmony group, right? Where there's just like other like-minded educators that you can ask questions about curriculum, resources, things like that to help surround and support you. And then lastly is discovering your unique impact method. So that's leveraging your differences to make the difference that only you can. Highly successful teachers have figured out how to do those things. One, acquire the skills that you need. Two, surround yourself with like-minded and supportive individuals. And three, make the impact that only you can. And if we can help new teachers learn how to do that and do that effectively, then there's no skill they can't acquire. There's nothing that they can't do. And eventually they'll become the teachers that they've always wanted to be.
I'm listening to you, and like I said, I've been in the business quite a while. I love how concrete that is, right? Like sometimes as educators, we do things and they work for us, and we don't quite like have the fit or the why or the how. And what you just explained is I think what, like you said, great educators do.
Mm-hmm.
So even as somebody who's been in the business 20 years, it's awesome to hear you say, you're in charge of your own growth. You're in charge of your own development. Get a plan, get the people,
Yeah.
and surround yourself, like you said.
And it's not just for those new teachers, right? Like us sitting here, I'm like, yeah, I need to do that more. So yeah, I think back again, I'm doing a lot of reflection as I listen to you, but I remember being that terrible teacher, and I would look at Sarah Loberg after school. I taught fourth grade, she taught fifth grade, but I would see all the kids hanging out with her. I would go in and I would watch her as she teaches, and she had control of the room, but she had the love of the kids, and I wanted to be like that. And so making sure that you see, hey, this is where I want to go. How am I going to get there?
Yeah. How am I going to get there and do it Josh's way? I'm not Sarah Lindbergh, if that's the name you said. I'm not her, right? But I see the outcome. I just need to figure out what's going
Yes.
to be my method to get there.
All right, Daryl, we got you on the horn here. I have to ask you. You turned me on to artificial intelligence and education,
Did I?
Brisk, Chrome extension. I have absolutely fallen.
Is this who introduced you?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes. Then Tom introduced it to me.
Come on now.
And so, yeah, hours of planning handled, like gone. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can be a better father. I can be a better parent. I can be a better teacher because I'm able to outsource some of the minutia. You know what I mean? I have it building readers theaters for my leveled reading groups at the elementary level. I have it writing emails to parents and newsletters. Like, what is the role of artificial intelligence in teachers' day-to-day lives, in your opinion, as an administrator? Like, it's a game changer for me.
Oh yeah, it's 100% a game changer, and I'm glad that you took it, that you tried it, and that you can see it. I mean, it actually is a really cool extension and completely free, which is like, come on now.
Yeah.
I think artificial intelligence is here. Some people say that we're in the AI age, right? Where there was the Stone Age, the Rock Age, those types of things. They say we're currently living in the AI age. I don't know what's next, but that's where we are right now. And there are a lot of schools and a lot of districts that are apprehensive about taking that step. But I just always simply equated to chalkboards. Like, are you going to be the teacher that says, I'm not ever going to give up my chalkboard? Like, I'm going to hold my chalk and I'm going to write on this chalkboard and you're not going to take it from me. Like, just because you're not willing to grow is not going to stop your school from replacing the chalkboards with whiteboards and the whiteboards with smartboards. Like, it's going to happen. I think the thing is, as educators, we just need to be ahead of the curve. And I mean, it's already too late to be ahead of the curve, but I think we need to make sure that we understand it. And I think I kind of put it simply like this. My daughter is 5 right now. My son is 2. I got 2 young kids at home. My daughter, she's at the place where she thinks she's really smart now. And she's really smart for a 5-year-old, right? But she's not going to get dad. She's not going to get over on me. So I take them out for a reward. The time she learns 5 sight words, we get to go to 5 and below. We go to 5 and below, but she gets one thing. She knows that she gets one thing. Her brother rides along with us. He's only 2. He just walks around the store. He doesn't care what's going on, So she wants one thing, but she'll get maybe like a big bag of blue Doritos because that's what she loves. Knowing she can only get one thing, though, she'll then go to her brother and she'll say, "Hey, don't you want those M&Ms?" Right? She'll say, "Hey, don't you like peanut M&Ms?" He doesn't even like peanut M&Ms, right? She's like, "Isn't that what you want?" Right? And I know, like, listen, you just want him to get it so you can share with him. So then I'll let her know, listen, don't influence him. Let him make his own choice. Why am I saying that? She's not going to outsmart me as dad, right? I see where you're coming from. I see what's going on. The reason why I say as teachers, we need to understand and learn AI is because if we don't, what's going to happen is we're going to let the kids outsmart us. Like, we need to know enough to be able to not be outsmarted by the children. You can't be outsmarted by a 14-year-old. Just don't let that happen to you, right? So it doesn't have to be your best friend. I'm not saying that you have to use it as much as Tom is using it and that you have to incorporate it into everything, but you have to understand it enough to know that so that you're not outsmarted by the students.
Absolutely. And I think for teachers too, a lot of the pushback that I hear is like, well, it's taking the work away, it's cheating, you're not really doing it types of things. But for me, it's also allowed me to be a better teacher with my students. When we talk about Brisk, there's a feedback tool on it that it can write feedback for your kids. Well, I only do that for my one kid that does his assignment in 10 minutes. Hey, here's some feedback for you so I can meet with these kids that really need me right now. So I look at it in the stance of it's helping me be a better teacher for my students that truly need me.
Absolutely. It helps you be a better teacher, and it helps you, like you said, free up time to be more present at home and things like that. And then also, what I was saying when I'm saying you just have to understand it, learn how to utilize it for good, if you would. So if you know, again, not letting the kids outsmart you, if you know that AI can completely write this paper and can completely, if you just put it in my own voice, like if you know that students can utilize it for that, then maybe the prompt is a little bit different. Maybe you don't just say write a 500-word essay, right? Maybe you ask them to do something that they could only do with like human input, or maybe you say, use AI to read over and provide feedback and use that as your first draft. And then let me see what your follow-up would be. How would you make edits? How would you make it more persuasive? Like just, utilize it, because if you don't know that it can do everything for you, then it'll do everything.
Daryl, at the end of every episode, we always ask one last question. A long time ago, there was this song, right? What the world needs now is love, sweet love. And we ask everybody that's on this show, what does the world need now?
What the world needs now in the AI age is more human connection, honestly, is what I believe. I think we're getting away from human connection in so many different ways. I look at my students, my younger siblings, my younger children, the youth at church and things like that, and see how disconnected they are from people and humans. I'm just on the screen in my phone. Literally, we'll be sitting in a room and they're like sharing reels with each other back and forth. Not even like I'm just gonna turn my screen so you can see what I'm looking at. No, I'm gonna send this to you. You're sitting 6 feet away, like that kind of stuff. But I mean, as educators, connection is what's going to help us grow. We talked about being surrounded and things like that. But I know that me personally, I've grown so much just as a person because I've gotten or put myself into groups and communities of like-minded individuals. I become a better husband when I started hanging around with more devoted husband, like people who really value marriage. I became a better speaker when I got into a community of like-minded speakers and business owners, and I became a better administrator. Like I've just become a better once I surround myself with people who are doing it at a high level or an equal level where we can bounce ideas off each other and things like that. So I think human interaction, getting into communities and groups of like-minded individuals that can help you grow.
Daryl, thank you so much for sharing so many amazing things with us and leaving us with the importance of human connection and growing with each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We hope listening to Daryl Williams Jr. leaves you inspired and ready to change the world. Huge thanks to Harmony Academy from National University for allowing Tom and Josh to continue spreading positivity and hope through what the world needs now. Remember, your empathy, your passion, and your dedication is exactly what the world needs now. Have a good one.